So my research takes place in the context of a water resources management practicum at the University of Wisconsin. You can see photos from this process here. And my research question, or my primary one, which led to several others, was wanting to know if public involvement would lead to meaningful decision making. As the literature talks about meaningful participation and all these processes, actively engaging the community, does that lead to being able to make these decisions and acknowledging the social impacts and the social factors in environmental planning? The project context was the Water Resources Management Practicum, as I mentioned. It took place in the town of Mazomanie, or the village of, rather. And it's located in southern Wisconsin, about 30 minutes west of Madison. The town has 1,600 residents, and it's a historic mill town. And the lake that fed the mill and the race and actually led to all of the industrial development of this town, and actually the reason why it exists, is the subject of the debate of this practicum. The area is dominated by agriculture, cattle farms, and grain farms. And because of its size, it has limited resources to deal with its natural resources and design problems that it's having with a lake. The issue is surrounding this dam in the bottom that you can see there. It feeds Lake Marion via a diversion dam, and the DNR has basically told the community that this dam has got to go, and this means that Lake Marion is being threatened. So we have, as a practicum, we needed to identify alternative water supplies, which also led to the landscape of Lake Marion potentially changing. So engaging the community of what changes could or could not take place, and developing those plans based on an evidence-based decision making. The community concerns were, will Lake Marion stay after the dam is gone, and how can we improve Lake Marion in the event of dam removal? And so we interacted with the community and developed a set of project goals based on these concerns. Identify strategies to preserve Lake Marion, evaluate the environmental conditions, and develop planning recommendations. However, at the heart of this was two parts. The first part was a detailed environmental science. Inventory and analysis, as some people would call it. So getting out on the ground at the site, doing water quality, soil sampling, floodplain studies, insect surveys, plant studies, determining how much water Lake Marion needs. All these kinds of research activities that can give us a better understanding of how this place functions. Inside that was a pretty intensive community engagement process. We did charrettes. We did a visioning process where we had the community write their ideas and post them and categorize them. We had field days where we got to go out on the site and interact with them, show them the research we've been doing, the designs we've been coming up with on the site. We also had a chance to engage them, socializing with them in informal parts between meetings, after meetings, or coming out to field study days where they could interact with us as we were doing the research and understanding what we were doing. We also did quite a lot of presentations where we presented our research, design recommendations, among other things, funding opportunities and things such as, or stuff such as that. However, alongside this came my research, wanting to know, what does all this mean to the community? Does meaningful participation lead in any difference in decision making? Does meaningful participation, how does that relate to useful participation? The literature talks about these two dichotomies. Is it useful to the consultants or the architects or the engineers and the designers? I'm a landscape architect, so I had a really big investment doing a lot of design in this project from a landscape architecture's perspective. And then in the end, how can we take this information and generate new processes that fulfill both meaningful aspects and useful aspects of projects? Identifying the stakeholders, the community, and also the people that were involved in the project, organizations, was a huge aspect of this project, getting them to come to our meetings. The water resources management consultants were the water resources management students. We environmental scientists of all types, engineers, hydrologists, geologists. I was one of the two landscape architects that worked on this team. And I was also a facilitator, somebody who had a little bit of knowledge of public participation processes and brought to the table some design knowledge of how to implement charrettes or these visioning exercises in order to elicit information from the community to use in our design and our alternative recommendations. I also use this, my position as a facilitator, to talk to the community and talk to the consultants and evaluate the strategy we were doing or where we were interacting. Were the surveys or were the charrettes giving us the kind of information we need to make decisions in the report? Were these strategies also very meaningful to the community? Did they generate excitement? How useful were these strategies going to be in developing partnerships and pursuing funding resources in the end for the community? And in the end, adapting our processes to meet these goals. Before I got started, I decided to turn to Webster and identify the terms that I'd seen in the literature over and over again, meaningful and useful, and found that these terms really are not that detailed. They don't tell us a lot. I mean, how can you distill some strategies, or what strategies are meaningful or useful from these definitions? In that case, all strategies are meaningful and all strategies are useful. So I turned to looking at literature like Guilford, Hester, Gobster, Burns, and other people that mentioned these meaningful or useful strategies, and sorted through them and saw that there were these two dichotomies, and how can we bring those together? So I developed an adaptive participation process model that uses interaction to interact with the community, not only at these charrettes and these design processes and the information gathering, but also to evaluate the strategies that we're using to do this information. So we're designing the strategies such as the charrettes, the visioning exercises, the field days, the meetings. We're interacting with them. We're evaluating these interactions. We're designing new strategies, maybe nothing breakthrough and groundbreaking in the sense of a charrette has been around for a long time, or these visioning processes have been around for a long time, but it's new to our model. We didn't have that when we began our process, and because of the community wanting to have these hands-on activities more, we implemented these kind of strategies into our process. And at the very end, evaluating how we did overall. So interaction, evaluation, and design is part of this adaptation. This project timeline I wanted to show just so you could understand that my role as a facilitator here, designing strategies, evaluating these strategies, and designing new ones, corresponded to the consultant and stakeholder timeline of environmental analysis, the field studies they were doing, interacting at these meetings. And we're at this process right now. Our report is set to be out sometime in May and June. So going back after that's been done and evaluate how they're using this information. What was useful, what was meaningful, how are they going to continue on with this project, and if we had to do it over again, what could we make better, just so we can streamline the interaction process, which if any of you have been involved, it's a very time-consuming, resource-intensive process. So where could we have allocated our resources more to fulfill these needs and gotten more information so we could have met the community's needs better?